Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. Today we got a special man on the line, David Robinson. He's the man. He's trained Sterling Shepard, some of the best receivers in the NFL, and I'm really excited to get you guys to understand where we're coming from. That Sterling Shepard is an outside receiver. That's where he should be. And David has all the info. He really has some incredible knowledge, and he works with some of these guys. He's legit. He's the source. But I'm really excited to get into what he knows. But first of all, I want to get to know you a little bit and understand your background and where you come from and how you got to this place and you're training these professional athletes. It's really incredible, man. Really, really excited to be talking to you today.
Man, appreciate it, man. I played receiver at the University of Oklahoma from '02 to '06. And when I got done playing, I went back to my old high school, which was Kimball High School. And I started helping out with the football program because they really didn't have a lot of off-season training as far as their skill work. And I was just helping those receivers doing it, at the time, just helping them with their skill set, their routes and things of that nature. And they just told a few of their buddies from other schools. And I looked up, man, like 3 weeks or so later, man, they had like 70, 80 receivers out there from all over the Metroplex of Dallas. And this was back in 2005. So that's what got me started doing it. And from then, it's '05 and now it's 2021. So I've been able to do it for a while and got with Shep when Shep was in college at Oklahoma when he was a freshman. So that's how the relationship develops.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's awesome. You've worked your way up from the ground up. That's what I like about you, man. Like you didn't skip the stages. You did it from the ground up. You earned your stripes, and that's really impressive. Just your story. So I really appreciate you sharing that with us. With Shep, a lot of people think he's an inside guy. He's a slot receiver. And, we're trying to get people to understand that he should be on the outside. And he does that with the Giants a lot. And I want you to give us some information into why you think he's better on the outside, based on technique, couple different reasoning why he's better on the outside than in the slot, just so people understand, like, if the Giants do utilize him in that way more frequently, and they have been, why they're doing so.
Well, I think he's effective, inside or outside, but he can mainly be an outside receiver if you needed him to be, just simply because of his frame. He's like 6 feet, 5'11". So most defensive backs that he's going to face are going to be 6'2", 6'3", 6'1" corners. They're not going to, have low center of gravity like Shep does. So it's hard for bigger, larger, longer corners to cover receivers that are, 5'11", 5'10", 6 feet, around that range, because they're so shifty. And that's one thing that Shep has. He's really quick off the line of scrimmage, and he's strong. He's very strong. So he can play outside because when he faces those longer DBs that put hands on him, he's strong enough to get him off of them and still get into his route and win at the top of the route if he gets tangled up. So I definitely think he can play outside.
Yeah, absolutely. Anthony, what are you thinking? Any good questions?
Yeah, I've got the stats. I know that in 2020, according to Pro Football Focus, Sterling Shepard played 190 snaps in the slot compared to 356 snaps out wide. So I always thought that was really interesting because his rookie season, 2017, he did spend most of his time in the slot. I think that's because they had Odell Beckham Jr. And then he did move to the outside once Odell was traded. So, is there any truth to the fact that, he had 8 touchdowns in his rookie season? Is there any truth to the fact that he's better off playing inside, or is it really just wherever they need him, he can play?
I think wherever they need him, he can play. But I think, it depends on how you want to use him. I believe, like you say, when he was in the slot, they had Odell. And when Odell left, they moved him out wide. A receiver like Shepard, you don't want to just leave him in just one spot. You want to move him around. Because he prevents mismatches on both. He presents mismatches on both sides, outside and inside. So you don't want to move. You don't want to just keep him stagnant on the outside. I think the Giants need to utilize him all over the field, kind of like how Kansas City Chiefs does Cheetah. They use him all over. They use him outside, inside. They put him in the backfield sometime and motion him out. So I think that's how they need to use Shep.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are some of the bigger receivers that you do train with in the NFL?
You got Emmanuel Sanders, Antonio Brown, Dez Bryant, Jerry Jeudy, who just got drafted a year ago, Van Jefferson, Jordan Reed, Delaney Walker, Rashard Higgins from Cleveland, Shoot, I'm trying to think, man. That's a lot.
You got too many now, man. You're getting too big for
Yeah,
us.
man,
A few
it's a lot.
stars
See,
that you
I'm
listed.
getting Terrace Marshall ready for the draft this year out of LSU.
And
Very
that's a big
nice.
one. That's a big one. We've been talking about him a lot at LSU, and he's 20 years old. He's 2 years younger than guys, like the big ones, like Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle. He's 2 years younger than them. And, what do you have to say about Terrace Marshall? Because he's a guy that we've been looking at for the Giants. I think he's going to go in the back end of the first round, but if he did drop to the second for the Giants, what kind of receiver is he? What is his upside?
Man, when you look at all the receivers that are rated ahead of him, they're all 5'11", 5'10". The Jamar Chases, the Jalen Waddles, Devontae Smith, I believe, who's like 6 feet. I mean, when you see him in person, man, Terrace is a big physical specimen. He's like 6'4". Yeah, he's like 6'4" and can move like he's 5'10", 5'11". And he can drop his weight, sink his hips low at the top of his routes. He can get down there like those smaller receivers. And at his mock pro day, man, he ran like 4.37 or 4.35 or something like that. And he like 215, 210. So I definitely think when they have his pro day at LSU, with him and Jamar Chase go with each other, he's gonna shake the draft up a little bit, man.
Yeah, I mean, he is
He
20 years old. He's 20 years
Yeah.
old. The guy's a monster.
Mm-hmm. And he's really mature for his age. When you talk to him and speak to him, he's very well spoken. And he really doesn't do much. He really doesn't say much. He's all about his business, all about football. Really not into he's on social media, but not a lot, not really flashy like that, like how they call us divas. He's not really a diva at all. So I think they're gonna like him a lot.
Yeah, one thing in my research with Terrace Marshall that I've been doing, leading up to this draft, I've heard or at least read some criticisms in terms of his ability to beat press coverage. Is that something that you've been working on with him? And I know Trevor Sikkema of the Draft Network said he thinks that despite his large frame, he's going to be better off as a Z receiver and won't be a true X in the NFL. Like, what are your thoughts on that? And is that something that you've been working on with him to try and be better beating press coverage?
Well, right now we've been working mainly on cleaning up his mechanics. And his arm mechanics and his footwork and his route running, because he's getting ready to run routes on air at his pro day in front of scouts. So we really haven't been working a lot on his pro day. On his press release, but we're going to work more on that after he gets drafted and things of that nature before he heads into camp. But I'm just trying to dress him up, make him look sharp in and out of his cuts right now for the scouts for his pro day.
Yeah, that's very nice. I'm excited for him. Like I mentioned, he's young. Like you said, he's mature, and for a kid that young to be that mature is really exciting. Especially going to the NFL, there's a lot of divas. With the whole Corvette thing going on. There's always things going on. You want to be humble. It reminds me of our cornerback. James Bradbury. He is super quiet. He leads by example. He does his thing on the field, and that's it. And I love players like that. That fits the Giants mold, and the culture they're trying to build here is just set the example, show and teach and learn by example, and don't be like overly about yourself. It seems like Terrace Marshall's the perfect fit for them. At 6'4", is a big body. So that's really exciting. I'm really excited to see where he goes in this draft, because he's an awesome player. That leads us to another really big guy, Kenny Golladay. And they're talking right now that talks are heating up with the Giants and Kenny Golladay. What do you think about Kenny in terms of his style and why he would be a fit with the Giants, and maybe alongside Sterling Shepard, how they could complement each other?
Man, in my opinion, his game is similar to AJ Green's. He can run routes, he can run an intermediate route tree, and he can run by you. He has really, really great ball skills. So I think he's ready to, emerge to be that number one receiver in the offense and get a big payday. I heard he's meeting with the Giants today. They're having dinner or something like that. So hopefully it goes good, man, because I definitely think that him, along with Shepard, along with Evan Ingram, man, you're a really serious contender right now. Defenses are really going to have to, respect the passing game and the guys that are catching it.
Absolutely. You mentioned Evan Ingram. Do you think, he dropped a couple of passes last year with a couple of issues there. Do you think that's more mental, or do you think that's something that's fundamental he needs to work on, his hands?
Well, yeah, I mean, I work with Evan also, man, and when I see him, a lot of those drops that he have, man, he's just used to catching the ball so much, and those are routine, like focus drops, trying to turn up the field too quick before securing the catch. I think those things can be fixed, but he just has to get more better at making sure he has the catch first, has the ball first before turning up the field, going to go score or making somebody miss. But he also made a lot of acrobatic, great catches as well. And I think he's ready to, emerge and take that next step and be more of a consistent tight end, because they use him a lot more this year than they have in recent years. So, it just comes with experience. He has to go through those growing pains. He wasn't used to being targeted this much and being relied on this much in the offense. So I think it's going to get a lot better next year for him.
I completely agree with that, actually.
Yeah, that's going to be crucial for Evan Engram, but I want to segue back to Kenny Golladay really quickly, because when I think back to Jason Garrett's time in Dallas, and I think when he had Dez Bryant, someone that you're obviously very familiar with, you've trained Dez Bryant, and the way that he fit into Jason Garrett's offensive scheme, do you think that's something that Kenny Golladay would be able to replicate? Would he fit into that same Dez Bryant type of role in the Jason Garrett offense? Do you think those players are similar in their playing style?
Yeah, they're definitely similar, especially in the red zone. And on the quick game and the short routes, like the quick slants versus press coverage, the stop routes versus press. Kenny Golladay does a good job at. Now, I don't know if he's as physical as Dez, but I definitely think he has some similar traits to Dez, and of course, Jason Garrett is going to do the best he can to get it out of him, man. If they sign him, because I've been hearing he might go to Baltimore, so we'll see. I don't know.
We don't know. You never know with free agency. Players make crazy decisions. They're like, nah, you know what? Forget it. The money doesn't look right. We saw it with Juju today. We decided to pass on Baltimore. Was giving him more money. He passed on going to the Chiefs too. Like basically Super Bowl.
Juju stayed with the Steelers.
Yeah, he decided to pass up more money with the Chiefs. I think maybe with Baltimore only, and he decided to stay with the Steelers. He loved it so much, loved the fans so much, but he could have went and maybe won a Super Bowl with the Chiefs next year. So it's tough, It maybe a questionable decision on his part, but I respect the loyalty with Pittsburgh. I respect the loyalty there. But, it's really exciting. The Giants are starting to put together what looks like a decent passing attack. And the last player I want to talk about before I let you get back to your family is John Ross. John Ross is a really explosive playmaker. He's kind of a gadget guy in a way, like Shep. You want to move him around, get him into space. And a lot of cornerbacks play off-ball coverage on John Ross because they have to respect that 4.2 speed. He set the record with, 4.22, 40-yard dash. He beat Chris Johnson in 2017. Absolute monster when it comes to the speed. But, his hands, I think he was in 9th percentile with his hand size. So a little bit smaller hands, had some dropping problems, the injury problems. What kind of receiver do you see him being for the Giants? What can he offer them in terms of like the schemes that defenses are going to have to shift to? Because I know they played majority cover one against the Giants last year because they didn't really respect all the weapons they had. John Ross is going to force more deep safeties, just those deep coverage guys, because you have to have guys back there. What is it going to do for that offense in terms of opening up the running game and kind of the receiver he can be?
Man, I hope he gets this when it airs. So when you guys shoot it, man. But John Ross, if you're listening to this, man, come see me. Because he's fast. He can run by anybody. He just has to be in more consistent catcher and learn how to stop on intermediately. Get more tempo in his routes. He doesn't have to run every route full speed because he's that fast. And I just think he just needs a full offseason, man, of catching a lot of footballs, working on his technique work a lot, because the Giants, they're going to rely on him heavily. They can really use him like Will Fuller, like the Texans used him. And I think he can really help that offense out. And you got Saquon coming back. It'll be hard to load the box if he can be more of a consistent catcher. And that's it. That's how, he really doesn't have to be the best intermediate route runner. But just, a little bit, just run a little bit, routes good, because they can use them on shallow routes, play action, over routes, and things of that nature. He just has to be more consistent with his hands and build his confidence up, man. That's all he needs. So he needs a full offseason of a lot of catches.
Yeah, and I'll just ask you one more question about Sterling Shepard, our guy, my favorite receiver on the Giants, right? He was really efficient in the red zone last year. He had 9 targets, 9 receptions, like 100% completion percentage, couple touchdowns, really, really good red zone player. Now, when most fans think of a red zone threat, they think of a large 6'4" outside receiver. What is about Sterling Shepard, despite being, 5'10", that makes him so efficient in the red zone? I think that it's his route running, but I'm trying to get your perspective on that. Why is he just so efficient and dominant when he gets down in the red zone?
Well, he does a really good job of setting up his routes. He does a real good job of his feet, using his footwork at the top of his routes, getting the defender off balance. And when guys try to put hands on him, I mean, at the combine, Shep put up 225 like almost 20 times. So he's strong, you know, and he's in that small frame, like 5'11-ish, you know what I mean? So it's hard to, you know, put hands on somebody that quick and elusive at the top of his route. So that's why he wins a lot of his routes in the red zone, because he sets them up really well, and he does a good job with his hands, getting off the press or getting off the defender to get to the football.
Yeah, and the Giants didn't really use him that much in the red zone. Well, they didn't really get to the red zone that much at all last year anyway. But, you know, this next season, do you think that they should be relying on him specifically as their primary red zone threat? Even if they have Kenny Golladay, I think he could end up, because we saw what he did with OBJ back in his rookie year. He had like 8 touchdown passes, or catches rather. And, you know, with that wide receiver one, it really opens him up, really allows him to expose those CB2s. Do you think that Kenny Golladay will open him up for more targets and more production because he'll be going against weaker competition?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, because I believe if Kenny Golladay comes in, they're going to want him to be the number one receiver. So he's going to be seeing the Jalen Ramsey corner instead of, you know, being rolled over to Shep and things of that nature. He'll get to see the number 2 corner. And you can, like I said, you can split. You can also use Shep in a slot. So I think Galladay is going to open up a lot for Jason Garrett to move those guys around, because he's a big physical presence. They can take the game over. But I think red zone wise, I think they need to, you know, use Evan Ingram. You know, I think because he's a hard mismatch. I think he can, you know, be a more advanced, athletic Jason Witten when he was in Dallas. So I think Jason Garrett's going to start using Evan more like he used Jason Witten in the red zone. So I think the Giants, in my opinion, Kenny Golladay's going to help it out, but I think, you know, they need to really target Evan Ingram a lot more in the red zone.
Yeah, you know, the Giants, if they get Kenny Golladay, they have, like you said, they have Evan Ingram, they got Shep, they got Dante Pettis, another guy who actually looked pretty good at the end of the year. You know, they have Darius Slayton too, another speed guy. So I'm actually like, how are they going to get all these guys on the field? And then you have, you know, Saquon.
Somebody not going to.
It's hard. Exactly. Somebody's not going to make it. But I'm excited, man. This is an opportunity for us to really take a step forward. You know, we only averaged 17.5 points last year rather. But you know, this is what we're doing. You know, we're trying to get some information on what this offense can be, because there are so many great players. And Anthony, I'll give you the last question before we let David get back to his family.
Sure. Yeah, this is kind of a different question, not really relating to the Giants necessarily. You mentioned Jerry Jeudy as a guy that you train. Alex knows I love Jerry Jeudy, one of my favorite players. I loved watching him at Alabama. The way he runs his routes is just special. Now, he's another guy who spent 553 snaps out wide and only 251 in the slot, despite, you know, he played a lot of slot receiver at Alabama, and a lot of people thought he would be a slot receiver going into the NFL, but he spent most of his time out wide, similar to Sterling Shepard. So these are two guys who aren't like 6'3" big guys that are just overpowering. They're more, you know, smaller stature guys, well-built frame on Sterling Shepard, of course, but they're still spending the majority of their time outside. So what really is the key? If it's not size, what is the key for a wide receiver to succeed on the outside in the NFL?
Well, you have to be able to win your one-on-one matchups, especially going vertically. A lot of guys can win underneath the intermediate routes, but to make you an effective wide out on the outside, you got to be able to catch that 50-50 jump ball. You've got to be able to run by a defender without catching the 50-50 jump ball and leaving them in the dust. So you got to be able to do those two things well with your intermediate route running, and you got to be a great blocker. So I think when Cortland Sutton comes back, they're going to move. You're going to see a lot more Jerry Jeudy on the inside, and they're going to probably move Tim Patrick back, you know, keep him on the outside. So I think he had to play a little bit out of his role a little bit this year, which was kind of, you know, people were kind of, you know, having whispers of, you know, was it a bust, or is he living up to the name? Because he was asked to do a lot as a rookie, you know, playing outside in that conference is tough, especially as a rookie.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know, he's extremely talented. We saw him, you know, in college, and the guy, I'll never forget, like he had the stanky leg move where he would leave that leg hanging and he would just pull up on people. It was great. But yeah, David, really, really appreciate you taking some time to come out and hang with us and just give us some insight on Shep and stuff. But I want to let you get back to your family, of course, and I'm really appreciative of you coming on.
All right, man. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me.